Cool. Okay, I think we're live. We'll give it a minute or two here for people to trickle in. For anyone who just came in, we're waiting a minute or two for a few more folks to trickle in. Get started in a minute or two. Okay, I think we're gonna get started here. Sound good to everybody? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for joining this webinar. It's a part of AMEc's Measurement Month. Today we'll be talking a lot about reputation measurement, and specifically about tying reputation measurement to business outcomes. But before we do, let's make some quick introductions. I'll start with me. So I'm Ben Sigerson. I'm the VP of Solutions at Converseon. I've been with Converseon for over a decade now. In my current role, I sort of sit at the intersection of our technology and our products and our clients' specific strategic objectives. So my job is to sort of marry the two in a way that delivers the solutions that they need. And also just a quick disclaimer, I'm in a bit of my house is a bit of a construction site today, so I apologize if you guys hear any background noise, but I'm just gonna power on through here. I'm joined today by Angela Palladino. Angela, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Angela Palladino. I am the Senior Director of Insights and Analytics at Walmart. I've been focused on reputation measurement at Walmart for close to 7 years now, but have been in the industry just around 12 years total. In my current role, I sit within corporate affairs, and I'm responsible for understanding shifts in our reputation across various stakeholders, identifying brand risk, brand opportunities, and most importantly, the thing that I'm really excited about is finding new ways to leverage data and technology to find new ways to really navigate our reputation and make decisions for the business. So super excited to be here, and hand it back to you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, Angela. So before we dive in, just a quick intro to Converseon. So we are, in our DNA, a company that's focused on delivering AI-powered text analytics technology for social, consumer, and reputation intelligence purposes. So we've been leaders in this approach since 2008, And lately, our focus has been on using this, what we call an applied AI approach, to transform the measurement of conversation and media data into predictive decision intelligence. And this approach has been, an award-winning one, and we work with a number of enterprise clients, some of whom you can see on the screen right now. And most recently, Twitter's recommended us the first such recommendation they've made as a no-code text analytics resource and API for enriching their data in other applications, such as CX or social listening platforms. So in short, Twitter's recommends us as sort of an ideal partner for deriving text-based insights from tweets with greater efficiency, with greater accuracy, better scale. So I'll pause here. Angela, you've been working with Converseon for a while now, and you've recently been elected to the SI Lab, Social Intelligence Lab's Insider 50 group as a social intelligence evangelist, I believe. So could you tell us a little bit about your point of view on social intelligence and its value?
Yeah, absolutely. So, social intelligence is, really important to us at Walmart, especially as you think about, a brand like Walmart and our size and our scale and really this volatile and kind of uncertain environment that we're operating in today. You think about, from a societal perspective, political, economic, cultural, you can just imagine, a brand like Walmart and the number of issues that we're pulled into on a regular and, a daily basis. And it's really like an incredible amount of information and moments and things that are happening that, we at Walmart need to keep track of and keep our finger on the pulse of and understand like where we're being pulled in and, what the potential impact can be. And, this information is just growing every single day, and it's more than any human analyst can really process. So that's why, systems like Converseon, that leverage AI, machine learning, are really important because they allow us to collect really high quality research grade data and information and really stay smart about all of the different things that are happening in the environment that we need to make decisions about. And social and online data is really the only source that's moving as quickly as the environment that we operate in. And so that's why we've really, we've been really focused on this, especially over the last 7 years, to make sure that we're, supplementing some of our traditional research surveys and really keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening. And Converseon's been, a great partner and a great tool that allows us to get there.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Those points really make they echo a lot of what we see as some of the key challenges and opportunities when it comes to measuring reputation, specifically through the lens of social media data, conversation data, et cetera. So, we are here to talk about reputation measurement. Let's dive into some of those challenges and opportunities in a little more detail. So, first off, brands, we can make the claim that brands have never really been challenged to navigate through such a polarized world so quickly. And the response to this challenge has been to measure and generate data, lots and lots of data. So companies are awash in data, and it can be very hard as a result, to know in that environment what data actually matters, what data is guiding you in the right way. And because of how polarized the world can be, and because of how quickly companies can be judged on their responses to issues or their lack of a response, reputation is sort of quote unquote everything. And what I mean by that is that reputation is in some ways more important than ever, and it's more visibly on the line than ever. And unfortunately, this has exposed the weakness of many of the traditional approaches to reputation measurement. So on the one hand, survey-based solutions are too slow, right, to provide the kind of lightning fast guidance that you need, and that's really required to navigate this environment. And also, typically, those top-down approaches, those top-down measurement frameworks, they're too rigid to account for the emergent issues that are impacting reputation. So in other words, they can't account for those like black swans or unknown unknowns, whatever you want to call them, that are constantly sort of redrawing the map of issues that companies need to be aware of and that are defining their reputations. So, to address all of this, to address these problems, speed to insight is just critical. It's really essential. And measurement-based insights, they need to be tied to real, tangible business outcomes in order to know which issues and which insights about the conversation out there really matter for your business. But this, has been really the main challenge for most thus far. So before I move on, Angela, I wanted to ask you, like, how central is reputation measurement to the work you do at Walmart?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, reputation measurement is really very much at the center of, everything that I do. It's a really important grounding point and provides context for us. Like I said earlier, we're a brand that's been around for over 60 years. We have thousands of physical locations. We have millions of people that are walking through our doors, shopping online with us every day. We're the largest employer in the US. And to your point, we have a lot of data. We've gone through this transformation where we need to, figure out how do we make sense of it and how do we make sense of it fast. And in the past, just like any brand that's been around for a long time, we've had some legacy systems for, measuring brand reputation. But what we've been able to do is really build upon those systems and augment them using social data to really make sure that we get at the heart of what's important to our shoppers, to, our different stakeholder groups, and to the business in real time. And I think Converseon has played a huge role in, that part of our measurement transformation, really helping us think creatively about, the art of what's possible with leveraging social data. And especially when it comes to data quality and predictive analytics, it's been, just such a game changer in the way we approach our decision making and our measurement.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Yeah, these points, about what's going on at Walmart, I think they couldn't be more applicable in a general sense. Like high profile brands, got data overload. As a result, immediacy and accuracy are really important when it comes to reputation intelligence and deciding how to act. So moving on, and with that, all that framing in mind, and those key sort of challenges and considerations and opportunities, I want to kind of ask a question for the whole group to just sort of mentally consider. Which is, what would the impact of a statement like this be at your organization? What if instead of saying our positive sentiment, for example, our positive sentiment for environment is up 5% this month? What if instead of saying that, we said something like, if we were to invest more heavily into improving our reputation with respect to the environmental responsibility, it would generate an additional $140 million next quarter. This, by the way, this is also not purely a mock-up. This is full disclosure, these numbers are based on real data that we've collected and analyzed for McDonald's and other major quick serve restaurants. But anyway, obviously this is, you don't need to think about it too much. Obviously this is something of a holy grail, right? So the question is, how do we get there, right? Everyone wants to be able to say this sort of thing from their measurement data. And the answer is, it requires an evolution from current typical approaches, some of the weaknesses of which we outlined earlier. So to put it simply, we need to move beyond descriptive rear view findings to prescriptive decision support that's based on predictive analytics and statistical rigor. And in short, we would call that something like decision intelligence. So let's kind of double click on that concept, decision intelligence. Like, what do we mean by that? I started to describe it, but it's a phrase that's getting thrown around more and more lately. Becoming a buzzword, kind of like AI was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But at Converseon, we have a very clear set of criteria for what is and what is not decision intelligence. Decision intelligence is translating measurement data into data with clear prescriptive meaning for business decision making. So it's translating data that tells you what is happening into data that suggests what you should do. In our measurement of conversation data, we do this by establishing a statistical link between conversation data measurement and business outcomes, such as sales or revenue or share price or other external business performance metrics. Anything that's trended and external to the conversation data, we can look at establishing that statistical link. So it's all about using that statistical link to a business performance to isolate the data that really matters and to thereby make decision-making clearer. So that all sounds really nice, but how do we do that? Right? Let's talk a little bit about the how. To really oversimplify in one sentence, it requires data enhancement via applied AI. And that means, it requires highly accurate data measurement using AI-powered text analytics, especially, when we're talking about measuring conversation data and enormous data sets like that. So how do we do that? It starts with data collection, right? So collecting raw conversation data, social media, survey reviews, news, et cetera, any other text data that's deemed valuable for these purposes. And we then measure, right? So once we've collected this raw data, we need to measure it. And this is where, with Converseon, where our core platform and text analytics engine, Converseon, comes into play. So through Converseon and its API and its database integrations, we classify all of our collected data, and thereby we structure it around key reputational measures such as trust or ESG or customer experience or whatever else you may deem to be significant for your reputation. Next is, we use all that AI-powered measurement of the conversation data as inputs into the predictive analytics process. So this starts with the first kind of arrow there is applying our proprietary consumer memory metric to score perception across all of these reputation attributes and topics. And critically, this allows us to factor for shifts in perception surrounding each reputation measure. So it's shifts in perception, not just volume or something else. And this approach allows us to reduce our error rates in statistical modeling by as much as 60%. So really critical ingredient in the process. We then use the outputs from that consumer memory metric to build a model, right, that predicts an external business outcome such as sales or revenue, the things I alluded to earlier. And finally, we're making all this available to our end users in a unified data visualization interface. So this data, at the end of the day, needs to be human interpretable. So the UI essentially allows users to assess their current reputational standing against competitors, diagnose the root cause issues or drivers that are impacting reputation, and then predict or simulate the impact of communications and marketing around those issues on their business outcomes. Okay. I don't know, Angela, was there anything you wanted to add here? Or I know you've yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to add just one thought here, as you think about, or as I think about, what a successful analytics process looks like internally. I think what you're doing here in this process, what you're doing with Converseon, with the technology, is really taking a brand or an organization, 90% of the way through that analytics process by collecting, by measuring, by scoring, by visualizing the data, right? And then that's where, I think after that, that's where like the magic happens. And when you could start actioning on it is when you inserted human into that actual process, right? So I think, at Walmart, this gives us a huge, advantage because when it comes to speed to insight, because the technology is doing the really time intensive piece that, used to be done by humans and not as well as a machine or a computer or an algorithm can do, right? So you're getting us like 90% of the way there, and then we insert a human in the process, and we're able to take that information, analyze it, interpret it, and start to feed it back into the business in a way that can really inform our decision making. And feed it back into a way into the business where people can make really smart decisions and feel confident that they have the information they need to take that real world action. So I love this because it saves me a lot of time and allows me to like just feed the information and think more critically about the decisions we need to make.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like this. I should have said that up front. Like all this automation and technology I'm talking about, like it doesn't replace the human element in all this at all. It's all about automating as much of those sort of like routine processes as much as possible, without sacrificing accuracy, so that humans can do what they do best, right, in this process, which is interpreting that data while armed with the best evidence they could possibly have for to make smart decisions. Okay, so. We kind of talked about the how. We've spent a lot of time talking about what decision intelligence is, how we do it. We really got into some of the sausage making there and how it works. But we started out today focused specifically on reputation. So let's tie those two concepts together now and talk a little bit more about how we deliver decision intelligence specifically for reputation. So it starts with defining a framework for understanding and measuring conversation related to reputation. And thanks to our applied AI approach, this framework is, or any framework we build, is fully customizable based on the client's needs and the conversations that we're analyzing. So what you see on the screen now, that's a pre-built out-of-box framework that Converseon provides for measuring reputation. It includes things like understanding conversations around corporate citizenship, ESG, trust, customer experience, breakdowns by key stakeholder voices, among many other things. But using, bottom-up AI-powered topic discovery methods, we can let the data sort of speak for itself. And this means that we probe the data to discover what critical, black swan, unknown attributes should be included in our framework for understanding reputation. And I'm going to get more into the bottom-up piece in like a second, in a hot second. But first, Angela, maybe you can speak about, how you've adopted or how we've adapted the decision intelligence approach specifically for Walmart.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, this approach is great because you're really covering off on a lot of things that are, relevant to, not only a big brand like Walmart, but like relevant to like almost every brand that's out there, right? And what we were able to do was, not have to like start from scratch and figure out, okay, what are all of the things that we need to track and monitor and that are important to us. What we were able to do was like look at, okay, what are like the pre-built things that you guys already had that we can start with and leverage, and then how can we customize it even further to really align with our own internal reputation pillars that we're focused on, right? So we can take the information and sort of align it to how we're structured internally. So what that's allowed me to do is really feed the information to my internal clients and my internal stakeholders in a way that makes sense and that aligns with how we're kind of structured and organized and we process information. So it's just great that this is flexible, customizable, and that you're tracking a lot of things that you could easily apply to competitors and use to compare yourself to others, because it's you're covering things that issues that like all brands are facing, right? So I just I love this framework, and the fact that we were able to adapt it to our own internal pillars was really, really great.
Yeah. Thanks, Angela. Yeah, that's like, can't say it enough, right? Like customization is key. In fact, if listeners recall, one of the first points we covered in here, we were talking about challenges and opportunities. The two big challenges we talked about was slowness of the traditional survey-based approaches, but then the other point was about rigidity, right? Top-down, like measurement frameworks that are exclusively top-down, they're just far too rigid for the environment that we live in today, where new issues are sort of taking over the conversation every day or every week, and we need to be able to adapt our measurement frameworks to that. So yeah, to do that, customization is really, really important. And I'm glad to hear, Angela, that that's been so valuable for you guys. So how do we do that, right? How do we adapt our existing top-down sort of pre-built out-of-box frameworks to include the sort of new issues that we need to be including? To do that, we rely heavily on AI-powered topic discovery. That's what enables us to customize the framework and really eliminate blind spots. That's what it's all about. So effectively, you can kind of think of it like what we are marrying the top-down approach. So we're not doing away with it. We're enhancing the top-down approach, which relies on supervised machine learning, highly accurate text classification models. We're marrying that with the bottom-up approach, whereby we interrogate the data, first to identify the significant topics that we should be measuring, and then adding that into the existing framework, customizing the framework. And Angela, I know at Walmart that specifically this technology is something that you guys get very hands-on with. You guys rely on heavily. Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah. So we've been using the Converseon, topic modeling platform for years. And, as a researcher, I'll be the first to admit that, I don't know what I don't know, right? There are things that are developing every day that like I never thought would be on our radar. I think in a traditional approach or without this methodology, like I would only be tracking the things that I think I care about. But what this allows us to do is really discover and isolate those unknowns, and pinpoint, what are the things that are developing that we need to start paying attention to that we just didn't even think about or didn't even, ever think that we would be like pulled into, right? So it's really looking at what's happening organically that's outside of our core issues that we deal with. And I think that's really helpful for providing context and helping, understand like how big things are and see the big obvious things, also see the smaller developing things. So it's been super helpful, and not only for analyzing external data, but we even use it to, analyze a lot of our own internal, like unstructured data as well, like survey responses and things like that. So it's, we found a lot of use for it for sure.
Yeah, no, thanks for providing some additional, some concrete detail there. And yeah, that last point you brought, I just want to also highlight, right? This whole system we're talking about is not just for social media data, right? It's also for other types of data, news media, survey response, all that type of stuff. But anyway, topic discovery, eliminating blind spots up front before we define our framework, such a critical first step, right? In applying decision intelligence to reputation measurement. And once we've identified those new topics and added them into our framework, that now comes to sort of more the top-down or the supervised machine learning approach, which enables us to train individual models for each of the attributes that we need to be tracking, and to do so very accurately, right? To track those very accurately with this machine learning approach. But critically, these models, and this is a step that's really often missed or at least not talked about in the industry, at least in the sort of when it comes to working with like consumer and social media data. These models need to be tested, right? That means that their accuracy must be proven. It must be known, right? There needs to be transparency around how accurate these models are before we use them. So we need to know with confidence backed by statistical rigor, not just sort of anecdotal evidence, that each model is delivering correct classification and measurement of our data. So ideally, a model would achieve an F1 score of 80% or higher before we use it. And for anyone who's not familiar with that term, F1 is like a gold standard metric of model performance. And it's really the most reliable single performance indicator for a model. It's sort of like just basic accuracy, but a little more reliable performance indicator. So for example, to make it a little more concrete, if we consider customer experience to be a critical ingredient of reputation, then we need a way to accurately and rapidly isolate true customer-generated conversations within this larger sea of conversation data. So in other words, we need to know that the model isn't missing valuable customer conversations and that it isn't falsely labeling bot-generated content or owned content as customer-generated, right? And only then can we begin to analyze the customer voice to answer questions about what drives positive or negative customer experience and how much that is then impacting the company's overall reputation. And again, Converseon's applied AI technology, our Converseon AI platform, they're built to do exactly this. We enable users to rapidly train and test their own models before using them for measurement use cases like reputation. Okay, so we've talked a bit about, we're moving through our reputation methodology. We've covered discovery, adapting the measurement framework, training models. The next step is to, after we've performed all that measurement, is to transform all this measurement data into statistically meaningful metrics that can be used as inputs when we model all of it against a business outcome like sales or revenue or share price, right? Or whatever it might be. So to perform this transformation, Converseon has developed its own proprietary consumer memory metric for scoring and tracking perception on key reputational attributes and issues. So this metric works by reducing the sort of noisy volatility that is endemic to conversation data, social media data, and it factors for past perceptions when scoring a company's current perception on any given reputational attribute. So let's take the example at right on the screen, right, for Aeromexico. The blue line, that represents a conventional net sentiment score. And the volatility is so severe in that line, we cannot see at all where something truly significant has happened for their reputation. It's just a useless trend line. The orange line, on the other hand, shows our consumer memory score, and right away we can see the moments when something truly significant has occurred. So when a critical mass of positive perception emerges in like early January or mid-January 2019, the score shows this as a unique moment on the trend line. But then critically, the score does not simply fall back down to zero as soon as that initial surge of positive conversation is over. So the score acts as a reliable proxy for the lasting goodwill that any big positive event would generate. And the result of all this is a really reliable indicator for reputation that isolates truly significant shifts in reputation and their long-term impacts. And it, critically, again, it reduces our error rate by up to 60% when we begin to use this data to predict business outcomes, which we're gonna get into very shortly. So once we've set up our reputation intelligence system and we've followed all these steps that I've outlined, how do we then best make sense of the output? How do we set ourselves up to extract relevant insights and decision intelligence from all of our measurement? Converseon's predictive reputation intelligence system, PRISM for short, is set up to do exactly that. So first we assess. That means we assess our reputational standing overall compared to competitors, compared to an industry average, trended over time. And with PRISM, we can view these reputation scores on a daily, a weekly, monthly, or a quarterly basis. And we score that reputation using the same consumer memory metrics that I just described. So it's on a very intuitive negative 100 to 100 scale. Now, once we've assessed, that's sort of like 30,000th of view, an executive scorecard view, if you will. The logical follow-on from that is to understand why. Why are our reputation scores what they are? And that takes us to PRISM's second module, which is called Diagnose. The Diagnose module, this uses the full analytical power of the reputation measurement framework that we've defined, using those top-down and bottom-up approaches I talked about earlier. So we use that to now drill down into this enormous conversation data set and understand what topics and issues are driving positive or negative shifts in reputation. So for example, if we look at the heat map on the right here, we can see how each of these fast food companies' reputation is faring across dozens of environmental, social, and governance-related issues. So right away, if you can see in the fine print there, it's clear that many companies are doing quite well when it comes to environmental and social issues such as sustainability, reduced emissions, diversity and inclusion, community efforts, philanthropy. We also see that many of them are taking a hit on various workforce or governance-related issues. So things like paid leave, employee compensation, labor relations. We can see that's true in particular for McDonald's, right? They're perceived, the lower right there, they're perceived very negatively with regard to labor relations, employee compensation, and other sort of governance-related topics. And then, stepping outside of this particular example, we recently used the same system to clearly see, how the outrage surrounding Kanye West's anti-Semitic remarks, how that rapidly evolved into a pressing reputational issue for Adidas. So, through this exact system that I'm showing you in the screenshot, it was clear days in advance of Adidas ending their relationship with Kanye that the negative reputational effects for Adidas were extraordinary. So in short, PRISM automated the ability to see this issue was not like others before it and needed to be addressed differently. So in summary, Diagnose module, it provides a clear sense of reputational strengths and risk areas or weaknesses, both in real time and with historical context. So that takes us to the third and final part of the PRISM system, right? Rule of threes. So we started with assess, we moved on to diagnose. Now we're talking about predict, right? The final piece. In order to take this conversation data measurement outside of the echo chamber of sort of its own data set of social or conversation data, in order to nail down its implications for an external business outcome, we need to get into this sort of predictive analytics piece. So here we can compare the predictive model's output directly against actual business outcome data. In this case, it's quarterly revenue. This enables us to see how accurate our model has historically been at predicting the given company's revenue data. So if you look on the right-hand side in the animation there, the orange line represents the predictive model based on the conversation data. So that's based purely on conversation data to predict that gray line, which is the actual reported quarterly revenue. So that enables us to see that the model has actually been quite accurate, or how accurate it has been in the past, and get some confidence in our data so that we can trust its future predictions. Then using the simulator tool at left, we can simulate the impact that positive or negative conversational shifts for key reputation attributes would have on the next quarter's revenue. So for example, in this demo data set for fast food companies, quick serve restaurants, we were able to see that ramping up communications and policies, if successful, around environmental responsibility, that had the potential to add or subtract the most revenue, about $140 million a quarter, right? So a lot of these companies are their overall revenue is in the billions. So it's not the majority, but it's a very significant piece of revenue, right? That can be accounted for through these environmental issues. And after that, social responsibility had the biggest impact at around 110 million. And in each of these areas, these attribute areas in the simulator, we can drill down to look at the key issues or sub attributes within them using the diagnose module, and that'll help us determine the specific priority areas to focus on. For example, we found that employee wellness practices, those do contribute to revenue, but gender equality was roughly 15 times more important for the business outcome, in this case, quarterly revenue. So in summary, Prism's Predict module, it's an extremely valuable prioritization tool. It enables companies to clearly see, for their industry and for their reputation specifically, where it makes the most sense to step into the conversation and communicate. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Let's kind of summarize here. So with this decision intelligence approach, I apologize for the background noise if you guys can hear that. With this decision intelligence approach, we can now make reputation a tangible asset, right? Meaning we can quantify the relationship between conversations about specific reputational attributes and business outcomes. And we do this by analyzing conversation data via an applied AI approach. We can turn this statistical link between conversations and outcomes into a simulation tool, and that empowers organizations to more confidently formulate their communication strategies. And having that confidence, right, that sort of quantitative rigor to establish your confidence in your strategy, that's more crucial and more important than ever given today's polarized environment. Third, this decision intelligence system is modular. That means it can be built from any starting point. So no matter the sophistication or the depth of your current social or media analysis, your work can make an excellent starting point for this type of work, right? There's not a maturity curve, in short, to get to be able to do this. You can start doing this from any starting point. And finally, we believe that adopting this more sort of rigorous and quantitative approach to reputation measurement, it really requires that communications professionals step up and expand their mandate to interact more closely with other parts of the organization. So those are the last of my shtick there. Angela, I'd love to hand it over to you if you have any other closing thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say I love what you guys are doing. I think it's so advanced and just so smart, right? I think the big thing for us at Walmart is that it really helps us push back on a lot of the anxieties of the unknown and of every day, right? And it helps us really figure out how can we be better advisors to the business? How can we tell what's smoke versus fire? How can we enable our teams to make better decisions and really focus on what matters and what is actually making an impact, not only from a reputation standpoint but also from a business standpoint, and not get too distracted by all of the different things that we get pulled into every single day. So it's been a great way for us to help bring a different way of thinking and just a different vantage point to our teams and really build credibility with leadership as well. So I love this approach. I think it's super smart, and it's just been such a critical enabler for our team and the way that we look at and think about reputation, and particularly through the lines of online and social media data.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Angela. Thanks for the summary. I love the phrase "what's smoke versus what's fire." I'm definitely gonna use that. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on this ride to talk about connecting reputation measurement to business outcomes. I think I'm not sure we have any questions at this point. If anyone wants to drop anything into the Q&A now, feel free to. But I think we don't have any questions in the chat right now. Hopefully that means it was just all very, very clear. And I'm hoping that we've given you guys all a lot to think about, some food for thought. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions or to discuss further. So with that, I'll bring it to a close. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening, and thanks, Angela, for joining me.
Great. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.